How y'all doing? For this review, I'm going to go cover another book about, it's an anthology, and I picked up at the used bookstore here in town. It caught my eye, and since I particularly like dinosaurs and all that, this seems kind of appropriate. That is Dinosaurs. Okay, pretty simple, straightforward. This is an anthology by Jack Dan and Gardner Dozois, or D-O-Z-O-I-S, so Dozois or Dozois, maybe it's French, I don't know. Please correct me if you know a definitive answer. This is a nice little anthology of 14 stories. I'll cover a good chunk of them here, not all of them, but I think after reading this, I definitely enjoy a lot what it have to offer. I know one story I've already read, and I'll get to that shortly. But I picked this up and I looked into it, and these are stories that are published from 50s, 70s, and 80s. The anthology itself came out in '90, and it ends up being a part of a long list of over 30 anthologies by the same two editors. In most cases, it's simply, at least for a good chunk of them for a while, it was just just whatever it is, like this one, Dinosaurs with an exclamation point. And, looks like according to Wikipedia here, they have seem to have other stories where they took out the exclamation point, but a lot of them is a case of just sorcerers or mermaids, unicorns, aliens, sea serpents, that sort of thing. You get the idea. So, but anyway, let's take a look and see what this anthology has to offer. So the first story we're going to get over to is a story I've read before, and that is Sprague de Camp's classic A Gun for a Dinosaur, written back in 1956. His classic character, Reginald Rivers, he runs a time travel safari company where he takes people to the past, usually to hunt for dinosaurs, or sometimes if you have the money, you go out there and you're a field biologist or something like that, collect specimens, wherever you want to hire him for time travel purposes. This is a story where Reginald Rivers, who's the main character, he narrates a story of his one event that nearly cost him his business because to hunt dinosaurs to any real effect, the gun required is a very huge elephant gun, and not everyone can wield that, because it tends to knock you over. And he brought two men, into a journey to the Cretaceous. One was this aging playboy type that just wants to shoot everything there. He thinks is kind of real big of a jerk. The other one's a smaller guy who he never does these type of adventures. He just wants to do something big and exciting before he retires and all that. So he wants to go on dinosaur hunt to collect the head of a dinosaur to put it into his own newly built house. And unfortunately, because one's a jerk and one can't wield the gun used to hunt dinosaurs, it led to an unfortunate event. And so that's what that story's about. So Reginald Rivers is Sprague de Camp's is a classic character. In fact, Gun for a Dinosaur I have read before in Rivers of Time, where that same story, A Gun for a Dinosaur, and many other adventures involving Reginald Rivers, comes in. But when it comes to Sprague de Camp, if you look at short stories where they publish something with dinosaurs or any of the best of Sprague de Camp, it's one of his most republished stories, and it's a good story. In fact, you could look up YouTube's, I think it was an old radio program, 0x1 or something like that. You could look up A Gun for a Dinosaur, and there's this wonderful 30-minute radio adaptation, very faithfully done. A few details here and there, but that happens here. But A Gun for a Dinosaur is a classic story written in 1956, and it's very good and appropriate for this. So I recommend that to anyone whether they have this anthology or not. The next story here on the list is Green Brother by Howard Waldron. A very interesting one. Apparently this feels like they never really exactly explain the setting, but I'm guessing it takes place sometime during the Old West. There's this old fort where they hired these Indians to help defend it, and upon the defense of this, there's a talk between an older man and his grandson, and it's about his first vision quest, and the vision quest tends to help them in the event that's about to happen here. And of course it has to deal with the vision quest has to involves a dinosaur in that, so I won't get too much into that, but it's a very interesting one. So let's move on and see what else. The next story is Hatching Season by Harry Turtledove. I've heard this author plenty of times. He's famous sci-fi fantasy writer. And this one is a simple one: a time traveler who gets lost, and she has a certain amount of time to get back to the place where she is picked up, to bring back to her own time. But events led her to being lost. But before that, she was looking at a nesting site and made an unfortunately caused one of the baby dinosaurs to be imprinted by her. So now she's got a dinosaur that thinks that she is the mother, and she's lost, and so. But for interesting instinct that the dinosaur had, that kind of helps her out on that. So again, I won't give too much, but it's a short story, so you can see where this goes. The other one is The Runners by Bob Buckley. That's a group of time travelers discovering something in the past never found in a fossil record. I won't explain too much because I don't want to give it away about that as well. Now, this one story, The Last Thunder Horse West of the Mississippi by Sharon N. Farber. Now, I remember this story on the cover of Asimov magazine, November 1988. My mother used to collect the Asimov magazines. She subscribed to them for years. I never read them, but I always loved looking at the art, particularly the covers. Had all sorts of good stuff up until the 90s came. I'm sure Asimov is still published today, but man, the appealing of the covers back in the 80s really got you sucked into that. But I remember this one. The cover on this one had a sauropod dinosaur with some cowboys around it and everything. So almost like Valley of Gwangi. But this is not the case. This is a story about involving real historical characters, Othniel Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope. These two guys were famous paleontologists who were also bitter rivals back in the Old West. And this is a historical fiction novel where these two guys are fighting over a live dinosaur, and they're trying to outcompete each other to purchase this creature. So, how does it turn out? Well, of course, read the book and you'll find out. Okay, the next story, I don't want to give too much away there. A Change in the Weather by Jack Dannon and Gardner Dozois, which are the editors of this anthology. And okay, this is a very interesting event. It's only like 2 pages long, and it's just a sort of a chaotic event of dinosaurs in a city, just to lead to a nice little amusing comment about in the end. So I don't want to give too much away, but it's one of those ones you read as like, okay, that's cute, that sort of thing. Now, the next two are going to show that sometimes it's not easy to come up with a title of dinosaur stories. This one is Dinosaur by Steve Rasnick 10. This one doesn't really have any real dinosaurs interacting with people at all. It just talks about it's a surreal story of a man and people in a small town or two. How people are becoming irrelevant. How the old saying, you've gone the way of the dinosaurs, and this is a story about people who are about to, in a surreal fashion, go the way of the dinosaurs. Now another story is Dinosaurs, plural, by Jeffrey A. Landis. Now, this is about apparently a government program where a man's leading this small group of people with some interesting special skills, including that of a young boy, trying to ward off missiles from a Russian attack. This is bear in mind, this is about the latest of these stories is the 80s. But as I said, the story these stories go from 50s, 70s, and 80s. So we still have the Cold War thing about that. So this story, you have a group of people trying to stop this missile attack, and the boy with his special skill sends the missiles off somewhere else. If this was happening, we'd give an interesting look at the end of the dinosaurs. Now, the last story here that I'm going to go over is Dinosaur on a Bicycle by Tim Sullivan. This is about an anthropomorphic evolved dinosaur. This is apparently a world where they become the dominant species. They live in a sort of an arrogant Victorian level society, and this dinosaur goes back in time by a special time traveling bicycle. He goes back and he goes to the past, and then he realized that there's other people from their own futures coming in. When he meets humans, he meets other animals that are advanced and discover time travel and all the craziness involved on that. So it's a nice amusing ending that shows about the hubris of advanced intelligent beings if they met all together. Now, there's a few stories I didn't go over here. I mean, let's see. I'll just see if I can recall the titles. Poor Little Warrior by Brian W. Aldiz. There's Getting Away by Stephen Utley. There's Strata by Edward Bryant. Time's Arrow by Arthur C. Clarke. We all know Arthur C. Clarke. The Night Blooming Saurian by James Tiptree Jr., and those are the ones I didn't cover here. But again, this is not like the greatest work of fiction of all time, but for the idea of dinosaur fiction from various previous decades and what writers came up with them, you can't go wrong with this. It's not that huge of a book. It's only about not even 230 pages, just about 226. It's a very nice, quick read. Short stories are nicely done. Various kinds, of course, there's always time travel stories, but not all stories involving time travel. As I say, there's a couple of surreal ones here and there. So, Dinosaurs edited by Jack Dan and Gardner Dozois, part of a long series of anthologies of various different ones. In fact, they even made a part 2 of this, and of course, they got another Sprague de Camp story of Reginald Rivers. But if you're interested in Reginald Rivers, and Sprague de Camp's work about that, Rivers of Time can give you all the stories that he did before he died. But I'm digressing again. But check this out. If you like, if dinosaurs is your thing, these guys did all sorts of things. As I said before, he did what is one called aliens, unicorns, magic cats, bestiary, mermaids, sorcerers, demons, dogtails, sea serpents. Little people, Magic Cats 2, Unicorns 2, Dragons, Invaders, Horses, Angels, Dinosaurs 2, that's what I just mentioned, Hackers, Time Gate, they got all sorts of, over 30, almost 40 books here. So, about that these two guys did for anthologies. And they may not be epic trilogies, but sometimes you want to step out from your full novels or big, three book minimum, long stories like that. Just read short stories, because sometimes the short, quick, nice snacks are great to have. In fact, many of the authors you enjoy, you get their start through short stories like these. I mean, Harlan Ellison in an awards ceremony, where I think it was one of the Hugos and Nebulas, I forget which one. I think he was Harlan Ellison's famous for short stories. He hardly ever does novels. But I think he had he won an award for best short story. I think Barbara A. Heinlein's wife, or some of our famous writer's wife, shows up and says, "Well, my husband got it for the novel," and of course he says, "Bite me," and he says that the short story is the heart of the genre. It is where they get their start. It's where writers find their voices. And if you're an inspiring writer or you want to write and may not have it in you to write a novel, don't neglect a short story. And this is an example of what short, simple, and sweet, but memorable. They stick to you if you find the right story. Give it a go. Dinosaurs, by Jack Dan and Gardner Dozois. Thank you all for watching. Have a nice day.